Hello and welcome to my Facebook Live series. I am Kristen Grace McGarry. I'm an integrative and holistic healthcare provider. I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I'm certified in functional medicine and advanced cranial sacral therapy and somato-emotional release, neural therapy, perineural therapy, homeopathy, and many, many more modalities. And I am here to inspire and empower you with clinical pearls and my tips and tricks and fun stories about my practice, myself, my patients, and this interesting world around us. And tonight, I touched on the topic that I'm going to speak about today. So, sorry, I hit the camera. So if you're interested in hearing more, you can listen. Last night we had a really fun topic that I explored, and today we're going to dive more deeply into the topic of gluten and why being gluten-free isn't enough, and it's not what you think. I'm going to share some information with you today that no one has probably ever told you, and it's pretty mind-blowing, so stay with me. Gluten is a hot topic in the media. And there are things like gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, non-celiac gluten sensitivity is a term. I have a whole chapter on gluten and the science behind the problems with gluten in my first book that's called Holistic Keto for Gut Health. It's on a whole lot more than keto. It's not that, and it's not your typical keto. This is totally different, and it's about healing your gut, and it's about using food as medicine. It goes into a lot of other topics. I'll do another Facebook Live on the book later. But for now, gluten. So gluten sensitivity, some people don't realize that they have gluten sensitivity. They just have these kind of nagging symptoms like joint pain or headaches or chronic sinusitis, and they don't realize that it's connected to something they're eating. And there are lots of foods, I talked about inflammatory foods last night, there are lots of foods that can cause symptoms in your body, but gluten is a big one. Gluten causes inflammation in pretty much every single part of your body. And my dear friend, Dr. Tom O'Brien, has compiled huge documentation of over 350 slides from Western medical journals. These are prestigious Western medical journals that are making the connection, have made the connection through research between gluten sensitivity and inflammation and disease. It's incredible. I was diagnosed with celiac Hashimoto's. So that means instead of celiac disease ruining my gut, which it also did do a little bit, it caused an autoimmune disease in my thyroid gland. There is also scientifically proven celiac hepatitis. There is celiac Alzheimer's. These things are not made up. These are in the literature. Our doctors need to start reading them and understanding that there is a connection between food, inflammation, and disease. And so I want to give you a little deeper dive into gluten. So some people are talking about gluten in the United States being worse and triggering more symptoms than gluten in Europe. And that could be because of glyphosates and different pesticides and GMO. There are different reasons why that could be. But European gluten is still not good for you, even if it's causing fewer or no physical side effects that you're aware of. That's the key. There are hidden sensitivities that can take weeks to develop, to see in your body, and you may not be connecting it to what you ate 3 weeks ago. But even more so, gluten causes inflammation in your brain. Yes, we think of it as a disorder of the gut. And if we had the science and the technology that we do today, when celiac disease was first named and discovered, if they were able to test it and see the physical body inside like we can today, it would be called a disease of the brain instead of a disease of the gut. And this is just based on science. This is just what we found. This isn't like woo-woo. For people who sometimes say, oh, I don't believe in all that gluten stuff, well, they're just not reading the scientific literature, which is okay. They don't need to. That's my job. I'm a healthcare provider. It's my passion. I want to be as informed as I can be so I can educate you all and empower and inspire you. Okay, here is the thing that no one's talking about around gluten, and I'm so excited to share this with you because it was a real game changer to my own health and my nutritional plan. So I was gluten-free for years, like decades, years, like 15 years before I learned about this, something like that. No, 12 years before I learned about this. It's crazy. So I discovered that there is something called cross-reactivity with gluten. So gluten is made up of gliadin proteins, but it has other proteins too. We just don't know how to test all of them yet. So gluten's made up with these other proteins and gliadin. And there are proteins in other foods that are similar in their structure to gliadin, but they're not. They're not glutinous, but they're chemically similar. And when our immune systems are a little bit off, which many of our immune systems are off, because we have some gut issues, even if they don't always show up in our gut with gas and bloating or acid reflux or weight gain or headaches, they can show up in other places like joint pain, but often it's tied to the gut. Now, when your body's immune system is a little wonky, it's more likely to cross-react to foods that have this similar chemical protein structure to gluten and gliadin. That means you might be eating non-glutinous foods. So you can call yourself gluten-free and still be eating corn or millet or quinoa or oats or brown rice or potatoes or eggs or chocolate or coffee or sesame, all these things, and cross-reacting. That means those foods are causing inflammation and damage to your whole body, your system, your gut, and it throws your immune system off even more. So cross-reactivity is really important to identify, and not a lot of people are talking about, in fact, like very few people are talking about this. So how do we identify it? Do we guess? Do we get on Google and start saying, boy, what foods might I cross-react to? No, that's not what I'm inviting you to do. There's a test. There's an actual test so that you can learn what's going on inside your body. You don't have to guess, and I love that. Although I'm pretty good at seeing inside people's bodies and hearing their bodies speak to me in a different way than you might be used to, and I like to educate people and help you translate the language of your body. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. But for now, there is a reliable test. And as far as I'm aware, there's only one test in the whole world that checks for cross-reactivity to gluten. Is your body misidentifying non-glutinous foods as inflammatory and bad for you? That'd be really, really good to know. And there's a test, and it is by Cyrex Labs, C-Y-R-E-X. And Cyrex only works with healthcare providers. I'm one of them. And so if you're interested in getting this cross-reactivity test, talk to me. Direct message me, leave a message down below. If you're watching the replay, reach out to me, leave a message below or direct message me, please, and we can get you tested. And I can walk you through that test. It's a blood test. I know you won't be getting tested in the next few weeks because we're isolating, but it takes about a month of preparation before you take this test. You're going to prepare and do a different kind of diet for 7 days. And then you stop and you go back to eating whatever you'd like, what your normal routine is, hopefully very healthy and full of whole foods and lots of veggies and healthy proteins and fats. And then 26 days later, you schedule and you get your blood test on that day. This is huge. People are not talking about this. It's very important to have a special diet for 7 days, which I would coach you through, and then stop that and wait 26 days to get your blood test. And the reason being is it can take that amount of time for your immune system to register the cross-reactivity and make the antibodies to the food antigens. Super important to get that. Super important. If you don't work with me, work with someone who understands this. It's so important. Otherwise, you're not going to get an accurate test. And why waste your money and time? And so, cross-reactivity test for gluten is huge. So just going gluten-free could be really beneficial to you. But if all of your simple symptoms don't clear up, you may be cross-reacting to these other foods. I'll tell you a story. And I told this story the other day in another Facebook Live, so I apologize if you've heard it twice now, but it's so important. I just want to share it. I was doing a detox, and I was going to some really, really well-known physicians, and they're all telling me, do a coffee enema. Do a coffee enema. This helps clear out your liver. I was doing heavy metal detoxing. I was doing all sorts of stuff. And it's because I had thyroid stuff, and I was like convinced I was going to heal this because I had heavy metal toxicity, which I did have and was proven in blood tests, urine tests, and hair analysis, the combination of them, which is very important. Don't just rely on hair analysis. We'll do that in another Facebook Live. I'll tell you about that. And so I was instructed by multiple people, do coffee enemas. So I'm courageous. I'm going to do them. And my husband at the time was going to do them with me. And so we're doing our coffee enemas, and I'm getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And people are like, oh, you're just detoxifying. You'll be fine. This is just part of the detox process. No. Come to find out, and thank goodness I listened to my body. I stopped doing the coffee enemas because my body was like, no, no more. And I later did the cross-reactivity test on Cyrex with a friend of mine who is a healthcare provider, a colleague. And I discovered I cross-react to coffee. I have a serious reaction to coffee. And like probably 21 and a half years ago, I had a cup of coffee that long ago. That was the last cup of coffee I ever had. And when I had that cup of coffee, I was driving across the country to study with the Dalai Lama out in the forest in Indiana. And I had a cup of coffee because I was driving with a friend of mine and my very young son, who was 2 at the time, almost 3. And I had a cup of coffee so I could stay up and drive. And I almost had to go to the emergency room. I got violently ill. I felt like I had horrific razor blades in my gut and I wanted to die. And now I understand why. Looking back, I could not figure out what that coffee had done to me, but I cross-react to coffee as I do gluten, and I have celiac. And so it's really, really helpful to understand what foods you cross-react to. I also discovered I cross-react to millet and quinoa. Why is that important? Because many years ago, I was having nori rolls with beautiful quinoa on it and sesame tahini on it and vegetables. And oh, I thought this was so healthy. Oh my gosh, would I get such terrible tummy aches. And so it was very helpful to discover why, because I couldn't figure it out. I thought everything I was eating was healthy, so I'd take one thing out and I'd still get tummy aches. And even if I didn't eat that, I'd have a tummy ache 3 days later, because that can happen with cross-reactivity. Sometimes you don't have an immediate reaction. So understanding that going gluten-free isn't always enough, that there is more to it, and that a lot of the gluten-free ingredients you may still be reacting to and having symptoms because of that. So don't think you didn't do a good job by going gluten-free. You just may need to do a little tweak or a little upgrade to that. All right, way to be informed and taking good care of yourself and working with food as medicine. If anyone has any questions, Muhammad, hello, welcome. If anyone has any questions, please type them below. Any gluten questions, gluten-free questions, cross-reactivity food questions. I'll give you a second to type them below. You can also direct message me, find me on my website at guthappyketo.com, GUTHappyketo.com. And I look forward to being with you tomorrow on my Facebook Live. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about, let me look at my list. I'm very excited. I made all these great topics for you. Tomorrow we're going to talk about your body and how it speaks a very specific language, and it's not French, it's not Spanish, it's not Italian, it's not German. It speaks a very special language, and tomorrow I'm going to dive into that and help you begin to translate the language of your body so you can understand it. All right, it's starting to rain here in the beautiful jungle in Costa Rica, and I have a metal roof. So I'm going to say goodbye for now and send you blessings of vibrant health, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye for now. Be well.